Broadcasting from Charlotte, North Carolina, on Sports Byline USA, uniting sports fans everywhere, this is Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson.
Everything that has transpired since Leah was diagnosed with cancer has really been inspired by God.
For the next hour, we will unpack sports, faith, and life with intriguing guests from the sports and entertainment world.
I don't have to worry about what tomorrow holds. If I continue to walk in faith, that I will not be forsaken.
Bringing you high energy and thought-provoking sports talk with a purpose.
As a man of faith, man, it's just confirmation for me that, that's what's real.
Now, from his mic to your ears, this is Bryce Johnson.
Welcome to Unpacking It, where we unpack sports, faith, and life with intriguing guests from the sports and entertainment world. I'm Bryce Johnson, really excited to be with you today. We've got a fun show in store. We will be joined by Ryan McGee from ESPN. He's down at Daytona, and we'll get his thoughts on the Daytona 500. We'll talk a little Dale Jr. and college football with him. We'll also hear a little bit about his faith journey. And then also on the show today, one of the big stories this week was Kareem Hunt signing with the Cleveland Browns. And so I'm going to give some thoughts on their decision to bring him into their franchise and how that relates to our own lives. And then also, coming up, we'll do our segment, I'm Convinced. And I've got some NBA thoughts as we're here at the All-Star break and want to share some opinions on the Lakers during the second half of the season and what I'm convinced of regarding Kyrie Irving and the Celtics. And then also, what about this crazy story about Matt Kuchar, the golfer, and him not giving his caddy enough money? Was he in the right, in the wrong? What do we take away from that story? I'll let you know what I'm convinced of. Check out our website, unpackingit.com. You can find out more information about our weekday email devotional. You can find out about Unpacking It Ministries, how you can get involved, how you can support us, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast as well. When we come back, it's I'm Convinced right here on Sports Byline USA and SiriusXM Channel 211, Dan Patrick Radio.
Inspiring conversations and intriguing interviews. More Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson after this. Going beyond the field, this is Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson on Sports Byline USA.
I'm Bryce Johnson. Thanks for joining us on Unpacking It. Check out our website, unpackingit.com. You can always email me, Bryce, BRYCE, at unpackingit.com. Always love to hear from you. You can also follow me on Twitter, Bryce Radio. It's that time of the show where I take a look at the sports world and let you know what I'm convinced of. And since it's NBA All-Star Weekend, let's start in the NBA. Because I'm still convinced if LeBron James is healthy and he wants to do what it takes, the Lakers can move up the Western Conference standings, make the playoffs, and then anything is possible. I know they kind of limped into the All-Star break and they haven't been playing as great as they did earlier in the season, but that's the thing. They did play well early in the season until LeBron got injured. Now, it slowed him down a little bit. It's actually caused him to gain weight, and his conditioning isn't what it needs to be. But I still am convinced that he can get back to playing at a high level. I mean, he's been putting up triple doubles. So, but consistently. And then now that the trade deadline, the All-Star game, and the All-Star break will be over, the Lakers can turn their attention to making a run toward the playoffs. And this whole idea that Luke Walton isn't the right coach and some of these players were going to get traded, I think all of that goes away, and LeBron is able to set the tone in that locker room to say, all right, guys, it's go time. Because here's the thing. This happens every single year. It feels like no matter what team LeBron is on, whether in Miami or in Cleveland, every season, right around January and February, everybody jumps off the bandwagon and wonders, what is wrong? What's going on? And I'm convinced LeBron actually thrives when people turn on him and there's controversy or there's just kind of turmoil in or around the team, and there's a lot of discussion in the media. That just turns the corner for him in his mind. He flips the switch and he gets everybody to follow suit. And the key for the Lakers is they have to get the veteran players playing more down the stretch and really setting the tone. So Tyson Chandler, Rondo, Lance Stevenson, and of course LeBron. Once those guys really lead the way, I think the other guys will follow. Because if you're Kuzma, if you're Ingram, if you're Lonzo Ball, you want to make the playoffs. Whether you get traded or whether you're a part of the future in LA, you want to be a part of a winning team. It's only going to help you as a player to get in, to make a run, and to play as well as you can down the stretch. So this whole idea that they're not on the same page or they're not listening to Luke Walton or the whole potential trade for Anthony Davis was looming and still kind of continues to loom, that's going to distract them. I think they'll move past it. I really do. The Western Conference is tough. But you know who's tougher? LeBron James. He's still the best player in the Western Conference and in the league. Now, Kevin Durant's having a great year. The same guys, Harden, Paul George, Westbrook, all these guys are awesome. But LeBron in LA, it's taken a little time to kind of adjust. At this point in the year, you start to slow down a little bit. I think they'll get rejuvenated, and I'm convinced the Lakers will bounce back. And so look out for them. Don't write them off. This isn't over in LA by any means. Don't start talking about the lottery with the Lakers. I think LeBron has shown this year after year that when he wants to turn it on, he will. The other big franchise in the NBA has their own controversies surrounding them, and I'm convinced the Celtics are better without Kyrie Irving. I'm convinced in sports and life, we want guys to be a certain type of leader, but that's just not who they really are sometimes because their personality is different. And so this whole concept that Kyrie Irving needs to be the go-to guy and the alpha male in the locker room and the guy that the younger players are going to look to, I don't think it's happening in Boston. And I don't think it's going to change. I think the guys on that roster understand what they can do without Kyrie. And so in many ways, what the success that they had last year, right there at the end with Cleveland, who was going to go to the NBA Finals. They fall short, and, of course, LeBron got them over the edge. I think that ends up hurting the team this year because they say, hey, we didn't need Gordon Hayward. We didn't need Kyrie Irving to get to that point. And those two guys are used to being the stars. They're used to getting a lot of touches and to be they're used to being the leaders on their team. But Jason Tatum, he's a go-to guy. And Jaylen Brown and Rozier and all these guys play well together. They feed off of each other. And Kyrie Irving is trying to be this kind of leader, to try to be, whatever he thinks in his mind of the type of player he just desires to be. I don't think it's playing out. I really don't. And I follow Duke basketball. Kyrie Irving spent a season there but barely played. He came back for the tournament run and totally messed up the chemistry on Duke. And ever since then, I've always been concerned with what he does when he steps out onto the court, that he messes up the flow of a team. He messes up the chemistry. And so as good of a player as he is, and he's a clutch player, he can hit some shots down the stretch. There's no question about it. And he won a championship with LeBron. I just don't think he's the guy that can be the number one on a team and that guys really respond to him the way that he wishes they would. And I think the Celtics need to move on from him. I think they will move on from him. I think they've got such a great young core. Why mess that up? And I think if they had the ability to get Anthony Davis without giving up Jason Tatum, then that would be a great move for them. I think that'll be tough for them to pull off. But I don't even think Kyrie and Anthony Davis makes the best option. If I'm the Celtics, I'd rather go out and get another player that you can spend money on versus spending that money on Kyrie Irving. There are just certain types of guys, the Carmelo Anthonys, the Dwight Howards, and I'm afraid that Kyrie Irving is falling into that. And you just have to embrace that as a Boston Celtic fan, that it's just not the right fit. And so that's my thought on the Celtics. And I think that they can make another run. I just think if Kyrie's out there, it makes it a lot tougher. All right, number 3. I'm convinced Matt Kuchar should have agreed to pay his caddy more money. But the criticism has gone way too far. So you probably heard this story by now. Everybody's been ripping on Matt Kuchar, who we thought was a very likable golfer. And now everybody's writing him off as selfish, greedy, not generous, all those sort of things. But here's the key for me. According to Kuchar, they had an agreement that his caddy Ortiz would have been paid $1,000 if he missed the cut, $2,000 if he made the cut, and $3,000 if he finished top 20, and $4,000 if he finished top 10. Now, Matt Kuchar won the golf tournament back in November, but now this story has gotten legs because it got out that Ortiz was only paid $5,000. But that's what they agreed on. I know that Matt Kuchar made over $1 million, and sure, he could have given Ortiz more, and it would have been nice, and it would have been generous. But for whatever reason, this was the agreed upon amount. And Kuchar paid him that. And actually, it was an extra $1,000. And I know Kuchar has now apologized and he's paying him the $50,000. But will that be enough? Will this make people happy at this point? The problem is we like to move the line a little bit, don't we? And this happens when it comes to tipping. I find this all the time when I go out to eat. It's like, what is the number anymore? Is it 10%, 20%? Is it, do we give to the person at the counter when we just order? Or what about delivery orders? Is it always 20%? When I go and get a haircut, I pay a certain amount and then I need to tip as well? Now listen, I love being generous. I love to give, but I want to know what the obligation is. What are we agreeing to? If you shave my neck, is it more money or is it included in the fee? I don't know, but it's just funny to me that the caddy agreed on the amount and then later he wants more. I like generosity. I wish that Kuchar would have agreed to give him more, but he gave him what he agreed to. What do you think about this? Let me know. Bryce at unpackingit.com. When we come back, we'll be joined by Ryan McGee right here on Unpacking It.
Intriguing guests and inspiring conversations. This is Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson.
And we're back here on Unpacking It. I'm Bryce Johnson, talking sports, faith, and life. And I love the NFL season. I love college football. And I thought the AAF debut last weekend was intriguing. But honestly, I'm not looking for more football because this time of year, I enjoy watching basketball. The NBA All-Star Weekend, college basketball is heating up, golf is starting, and NASCAR is back. And the Daytona 500, of course, is the big race. And so I'm excited about our guest today. We're going to talk racing, and we'll talk a little college football with him as well. And joining us now is Ryan McGee, senior writer for ESPN, co-host of Marty and McGee on ESPN Radio, and co-author of Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s book, Racing to the Finish, which is a New York Times bestseller. Ryan has won multiple sports Emmys, written multiple books, and covers NASCAR and college football. He joins us from Daytona to talk faith, sports, and life. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us on Unpacking It. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm always good when I'm standing at the World Center of Racing and I'm watching race cars go around the racetrack. And I was figuring it out when I was driving up here from the Orlando airport. This is my 24th Daytona Speed Weeks, which either means that well, I know what it does mean. It means I'm old, but but I'm also fortunate that they keep paying me to come down here, so I'm going to keep showing up as long as they keep telling me to show up.
Man, that's awesome. So as a media member, what is the week like, and what do you look forward to the most each year?
Well, it's funny because it's changed over the years. When I first started coming down here, they would run the Rolex 24-hour race, the sports car race, the 2 weekends before the 500. So you would come down for the Rolex 24 hours and just stay. And so I would be down here for 2.5 weeks in February, and usually would have just been here for a week and a half in January for NASCAR testing. And so now it kind of feels abbreviated, to be honest with you. We get down here, for me, I wasn't here for the Bud Shootout the first weekend, but I got down here on Wednesday afternoon for Media Day, and we'll be here through the Daytona 500 on Sunday. But it just feels good. It's like a homecoming. It feels familiar. You come in, and when I come through that tunnel, I still get the same feeling that I got when I was a 20-nothing-year-old, production assistant at ESPN. And so it's it's one of the happiest place on earth is this on the grid prior to the green flag of the Daytona 500, and I never want to not be there.
That's cool. So why do you think that is? What makes it so special?
Well, first of all, it's a great American race. I love the fact that it's the first race of the year because the points don't matter. Everybody just wants to win this race. And, like Kyle Busch is down here and has done all this remarkable stuff in his career and has won 50 Cup races and almost 200 NASCAR, national races and won a championship. But he still feels like there's a huge hole in his resume because he's never won the Daytona 500. And you think about the pressure we used to put on Dale Earnhardt, on Buddy Baker and Darrell Waltrip and Rusty Wallace and the guys that hadn't won it with these Hall of Fame careers, and then some did and some didn't. And so it's just a good feeling, man. And the season's getting started, and everybody's uniforms are brand new and clean, right? And nobody's sick yet, and nobody's mad at anybody yet. And it's just a good feeling being out there. And usually the weather's perfect, so we're excited.
Oh, that's awesome. Ryan McGee, our guest right now on Unpacking It, senior writer for ESPN and down there at the Daytona 500. And so this is your 24th year. I mean, it's crazy to be down there that many times and to see the sport go through, ups and downs. And so as you look at this year, the start of the NASCAR season, how does it compare to, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago, just kind of the overall state of NASCAR at the start of the season?
Well, the sport is facing a lot of challenges right now, and that's no secret. And attendance is not what it was, and TV ratings are not what they were. Now, for the Daytona 500, it's fine. But that's kind of like the Kentucky Derby, right? You can't really gauge the health of horse racing just based on their biggest day. And I feel like that with NASCAR too. So there are challenges, and I think that the biggest challenge for that sport is kind of breaking old habits. You don't have to run 30-plus races a year just because you've always done it like that. And you don't have to go to certain racetracks twice a year just because you've always done it like that. And so I think there are new leaders in place and people that are going to be willing to kind of take bigger swings at stuff like, weeknight primetime races, in the summertime. And maybe not going back to some of the old tracks twice a year. And, you don't have to be there for 3 days every weekend, qualifying happy hour Saturday and a race on Sunday. Every race doesn't have to have a 400 or a 500 at the end. It could be a 300-mile race. So I think there's things that NASCAR is looking at, and I think they're actually going to do it. They've thought about those things over the years. And so, listen, my daughter's 14, and I can't get her to sit through a movie that lasts an hour and 45 minutes. She sure ain't going to sit and watch every Cup race last 3.5 hours, and the season starts at Valentine's Day and ends at Thanksgiving. So if you want millennials to watch, you've got to cater to them a little bit. But you also can't abandon your old school audience. So I think there's a lot of thought going into that now, and I don't think that was the case 5-6 years ago.
Interesting. Great perspective from Ryan McGee here on Unpacking It. And then, of course, just as we look across all of sports, we know that so many leagues and sports are driven by stars. And of course, NASCAR is that way and always has been. And so who are kind of the top three that come to mind that you think can really, draw in even some of the fringe NASCAR fans just because of the types of personality that they have that can, just be contagious to the average fan?
Well, listen, I say this all the time, that people need to take a moment and appreciate Jimmy Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
He might be the best ever.
Yep.
And he's won 7 championships, and he's done it. They've changed the playoff format on him multiple times. They've changed the cars on him almost every other year. You know, when he started his career, he was on the racetrack with Mark Martin and Rusty Wallace and those guys, and now he's racing against a bunch of millennials. I mean, he has a classic Hall of Fame career, and the numbers that he's put up and has continued to put up at a time when the sport has its greatest parity in the history of stock car racing is phenomenal. And I was chatting with him just a little bit ago. He's not done. You know, I still think he's got at least a couple of seasons left. He wants that 8th championship. So there's one.
Yep.
And number 2, listen, everybody needs a Darth Vader, right? I'm a big Star Wars guy. You got to have a Darth Vader, and Kyle Busch is Darth Vader.
Oh, yeah.
And, oh, by the way, he's also won 50 Cup races. And I mentioned a minute ago, he's between, you know, the top 3 national series. He's won almost 200 races. And so, you know, whether you love him or you hate him, and I don't think he's the jerk that he was 10 years ago that everybody remembers.
True.
You know, appreciate him. And then the third group, I would mash these guys together. And, you know, give me Chase Elliott, Bill Elliott's son. You know, give me Ryan Blaney, part of the great Blaney bloodline of sprint cars. And, again, I got a 10-year-old daughter. She don't care a thing about any of this unless those young guys are on television.
That's right.
And suddenly, you know, those dudes they're hilarious and they're fun. And, oh, by the way, they're really, really good. And so, to me, this is the best group of young, talented drivers we've had come up all at once as long as I've been covering the sport for almost 25 years now.
Man.
So, yeah, Jimmy Johnson, Kyle Busch, and then, you know, give me any of those millennial guys. And I think that you can, if you can't find someone to root for or boo out of that group, then I probably don't have anything for you.
That's right. That's good stuff. Ryan McGee from ESPN, our guest right now on Unpacking It. He covers NASCAR as well as college football. And last year the book was released and still on the New York Times bestsellers. It's a co-authored book with Dale Earnhardt Jr. called Racing to the Finish. And so, Ryan, what aspect of Dale's story did you enjoy writing about the most?
To me, it was just his honesty. You know, I was just chatting with Brad Keselowski about this just a very few minutes ago before I called you, and you know, he and Brad have been friends forever, and Brad actually was a huge help on the book, helped me fill some holes of some moments that, you know, I always say the guys who make the history do a terrible job of remembering it, and so especially the guys that had concussions, right? And so Brad helped me out a lot, you know, because they're such good friends, and he was there for a lot of the important moments. But for me, it was Dale's honesty and his sincerity. When he first approached me about doing this almost exactly a year ago, so just prior to Speed Weeks of 2018, and what he said to me was, he said, the reason I want to do this book is to help people who are silently suffering like I was and let them know they can get help. And I'll be honest with you, you know, my cynical sports writer side was kind of like, okay, man, but you also want to sell some books and make some money.
Yep.
And the reality is, he was never going to make money off this. It makes a little, but certainly in the Dale Jr. world, it's not that much. You know, his mission was very sincere, and the more that we talked and the more that we worked on it, the more verification that I received that he was indeed really wanting to help. And if you follow him on social media, you see on an almost daily basis, people are reaching out to him saying, I just read the book, you've helped me, or I've just read the book, I think I'm suffering too, could you help me? And he immediately gets in touch with us and says, here's my doctor's name, here's his cell phone number, call him. And this goes on a daily basis. And so to me, that's been the most gratifying part of it, is the fact that I love the fact that the book is selling selfishly because I love the fact that our book is selling. But the most important reason is because I know it's just reaching that many people. And it does on a daily basis. And it means a lot to him, and in turn means a lot to me.
The book is called Racing to the Finish, co-authored with Ryan McGee and Dale Earnhardt Jr. But right now we need to take a quick break, but we're just getting started with Ryan McGee. We got plenty more to get to, and we got to hear more about his story and his faith journey. It's all coming up right here on Unpacking It. You can check out our website, unpackingit.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, Bryce Radio. Stick around in just a little bit. I'm going to share my thoughts on the Kareem Hunt signing. Thanks so much for being with us.
Sharing the personal side of sports. This is Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson on Sports Byline USA.
Hey, it's Bryce Johnson, and really appreciate you listening to the Unpacking It radio show each week. But I want to invite you to check out our website, unpackingit.com, so that you can sign up to receive Unpacking It each day in your email. That's right. We send out an encouraging, challenging, inspiring word through email. It's in written form. It's a devotional that takes a current sports story, relates it to the Bible. We call it Unpack This, and you can subscribe for free by going to unpackingit.com. It's designed to help you grow in your faith and help you understand the Bible better, all with a little sports and some of the cool stories going on in the world of sports. And so we encourage you to check it out. It's for you, and it's about 2 minutes each weekday in your inbox. Check it out, unpackingit.com, and subscribe to Unpack This. And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe to our podcast as well.
Bringing you unique insight into the faith and character of guests from the sports world. Welcome back to Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson.
I'm Bryce Johnson. Great to be with you here on Unpacking It. Check out our website, unpackingit.com. We're in the middle of a conversation with Ryan McGee. You know him from ESPN, ESPN The Magazine, ESPN.com, ESPN Radio, ESPN TV, SEC Network. He covers NASCAR, college football, and has been in the business since 1994. And so really glad to have him on the show today, especially with the Daytona 500 taking place. And so let's continue with Ryan McGee right now. And Ryan, last question on the book. It's not only geared toward those that are suffering with concussions. And so how does that translate to other areas as far as just offering hope and encouragement to readers that hear Dale's story and how he, battled and has gone through a lot throughout his journey?
Yeah. And I think the beauty of Dale Jr. has always been that he's been so relatable, and honestly has every reason in the world to not be relatable. His dad was as famous as you can get. Dale Jr. has starred in music videos with Jay-Z and Beyonce. He is run in social circles, and it's funny when you're eating lunch with him. His phone will ring, and you'll look over his cell phone, and it'll be a phone call from a movie star or a rock star or what. And he doesn't think anything of it. But that's the beauty of him, is that he treats the construction worker that comes to him and says, I think I suffered a concussion at work, the exact same way that he would handle a call from Jay-Z. He's just a good guy. And so I think that there's also an invincibility to race car drivers, particularly if their last name is Earnhardt. And for him to be that vulnerable, and he hates that word, but that's what he was, and for him to just lay it out there and let people know that, hey, if this guy, who is literally a death-defying stuntman, if he suffers and then knew he had to get help, then that's what I need to do. And so I think that's the part of it that I think he understands his impact on people, and he's never taken that for granted, even at the height of his popularity and the height of his wealth. And that's what makes him Dale Jr., and that's why a lot of other guys were never going to be that.
That's cool. He connects and resonates. There's no question about it. The book is called Racing to the Finish, co-authored with Ryan McGee and Dale Earnhardt Jr., and so definitely check that out. So we're joined right now by Ryan McGee. It works at ESPN, and you can see him on TV and hear him on the radio and read his work covering NASCAR and college football. And so you started at ESPN in 1994, and you've had this great long career in the media business and all these kind of different platforms that you're a part of. Why did you end up landing on NASCAR and college football as your kind of two main sports that you focus on?
Well, I grew up in a college football house. My father was a college football official in the ACC and the Big East for almost 40 years. And when I was a little guy, my dad was an official in small colleges throughout the Carolinas. And then as I was a teenager, he started working, in the ACC in Clemson, South Carolina, and the Rose Bowl and the Orange Bowl. And so I grew up in a college football house. And my father, his day job, he was a college administrator. So I grew up on college campuses. So that was really my background. I had my first sideline credentials for a college football game when I was 13.
Wow.
Had a camera that Santa Claus had brought me and was taking pictures on the sideline. It was North Carolina, Virginia, in November of 83. And then I was keeping statistics for the Furman University Radio Network when I was in high school. And so as long as I can remember, I've been going to stadiums and going to college football games. Well, then I started at ESPN right out of college, and it was a much smaller company then, and there were only really two Southerners at ESPN in 1994, me and Reese Davis.
Wow. Okay.
And Reese, of course, everybody knows, is a host of College Game Day.
Oh yeah.
And he's from Alabama, and he doesn't really sound Southern unless you get him one-on-one, but I sound Southern. And so when I started at ESPN, the first week I was on the job as a production assistant, Jeff Gordon won the first Brickyard 400. So NASCAR became a really big deal very quickly when it came to SportsCenter and other shows at ESPN, and I was the only Southerner in the company. And I was born in Rockingham, North Carolina. So as far as they were concerned, I might as well have been Richard Petty. I don't think I ever knew as much about NASCAR as they thought I did, but I certainly knew more than they knew. And so we started a nightly show the following year called RPM Tonight, which was a nightly motorsports show on ESPN2. And I just kind of went from there. And in fact, Reese Davis and I both worked on RPM Tonight. And we both said one day we'll work on college football too. And now we both work on college football.
Gosh, that's a great story. I love it. Ryan McGee joining us here on Unpacking It. And so, Ryan, here on the show, we love talking sports and life and faith as well. And so the two sports you cover, college football and NASCAR, I mean, those are two of the most, common sports where faith really seems to play an outspoken role in the lives of a lot of the people involved. And so from your perspective, being around both, what have you noticed about that? What do you see as far as even kind of why that is the case?
Well, I think that a lot of it is the fact that that everybody's faith is kind of out in the open in both of those worlds, and it's not necessarily the case in other industries and even in other sports. And quite honestly, you can be open about it and not have to defend yourself very much. And so what I find is, like in the case of Dale Earnhardt Jr., in our book, Racing to the Finish, that's on a Christian, that's with a Christian publishing company, W Publishing. And we, in order to endure what Dale Earnhardt Jr. has in his life, whether it's the death of his father or whether it's a very difficult childhood or whether it's dealing with concussions, you have to have an anchor. You just do. And I think in college football, particularly, or any brand of football, particularly these days, when, again, we're talking about concussions and we're talking about injuries and all that, you have to have an anchor. And so you can have that through your faith. And for me, I mentioned my father was a college administrator. I grew up on faith-based campuses as a kid. And so, and as a result, you joined the FCA, Fellowship of Credential Leagues, because that's what you did, And I'm so glad I grew up in that world. And so yeah, I mean, listen, life is hard enough. And whether you're a professional athlete or whether you're just a dude like me, and there's the tough times are going to come. And if you don't have that anchor, I'm not entirely sure how you're going to get through those tough times. And a lot of people have tried a lot of different ways, and nobody's shown me a better one yet than being anchored to your faith.
Amen. Wow, that's awesome. Good stuff from Ryan McGee. And so then for you personally, as you look back on your life and some of the challenges that you've faced personally, what has that looked like for you to really rely on the Lord, and how has your faith grown during some of those tough times?
It's the lonely moments, right? And you don't want to just automatically just run to the worst moments of your life. But the reality is that when things are going great, your faith sometimes is just in the background. And then there are things that wake you up to that, and there's things that make you, run back to that anchor. And there's many things that remind you that there are bigger forces at work out there than just you or just your family or just your problems. And for me, I think about the unexpected death of my mother. I think about when I went off to college and I went to the University of Tennessee and there's 40,000 students and I knew no one. And I think about when I moved to Connecticut and knew no one. And there's just those moments where you think you're alone and then you realize that you aren't. And then the next part of that is kind of not unlike what Dale Jr. is doing, which is just letting other people know, no, you're not alone. And no, it's okay to get help. And it's okay to ask for help. And it's okay to look for answers in places other than maybe what the people are telling you or where they're telling you to look. And so for me, it's been like that my whole life, that right about the time I start thinking I got this figured out on my own, something usually comes along pretty quick to remind me that I don't. And then I remember what's been there my whole life, and that's what that faith is.
Ryan McGee with us here on Unpacking It, talking sports, faith, and life. And so, Ryan, you mentioned your 14-year-old daughter. What has that been like being a father, and what role does your faith in God play in how you've raised her and tried to be an example to her?
Well, you talk about getting your priorities reset, and you talk about thinking that you're it, and you think that the world revolves around you. That changes the second they put that baby in your hand. And it certainly changed for me, that morning 14 years ago. I still think about it. And my father told me that you're going to change instantly when you realize that your entire world, that the axis of your world just changed. And I'm like, okay, old man, whatever. And it's exactly what happened. And so, so what we talked to my daughter about is exactly what I'm talking about, which is just understanding that even when you feel like you're alone, and even when you think you are, and even when other people make you think that you are, the reality is that you aren't. And at its most boiled down, basic, bare bones minimum, to me, that's faith, which is just knowing that it's there, and you don't need proof, right? And you don't need somebody to do this or do that or say this or say that. When you just know that it's there, to me, that's the definition of faith. And that's what we preach to her all the time. And if that's always there for you, then being kind to other people comes pretty easy,
That's right.
Even when maybe they aren't so kind to you.
It's good. Man, strong stuff from Ryan McGee here on Unpacking It. And Ryan, I've got one final question for you, and we'll get kind of go toward college football a little bit, because I'm fascinated by it, and someone that like you who covers it closely. Are you a fan of the new transfer rules where guys can gain immediate eligibility and now they no longer have to seek permission to transfer? What do you make of all this?
I've got no problem with giving a little power back to the kid.
Yeah.
And I think that these coaches that make all this money and they have all the power and have forever, the only reason, and don't let anyone tell you differently, the coaches write these rules. The coaches sit in a room, whether it's targeting or whether it's transfer rules. The coaches are the ones that sit in a room and start the conversations and write the initial draft of the rules that become the law and in the game. And they just didn't see this coming. and I have no problem with it, because most of them are making plenty of money and they have all the power in the world. And I've got I'm not one of these, the players should be paid guys, but I'm all about giving them as much power as you can. And to me, giving those kids the power to be in charge of their own fate, I got no issue with that at all.
Man, I'm right there with you. I love it, and it adds even more intrigue to the offseason and just to see where these guys end up. So, Ryan, man, really appreciate you joining us today on Unpacking It, and appreciate you sharing just a little bit about your journey and your perspective. And I know it's a busy week down in Daytona, and so hope you enjoy the race and have a blast, and would love to catch up with you again soon.
Hey, I appreciate it. You call me anytime.
Awesome. Thanks so much. There's Ryan McGee from ESPN joining us here on Unpacking It. Up next, we'll do our segment, Unpack This. about Kareem Hunt signing in Cleveland. It's next.
Inspiring conversations and intriguing interviews. More Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson after this.
It's our final segment of the day here on Unpacking It. We call it Unpack This, where I take a current sports story and relate it to the Bible and our own lives. So here we go. Running back Kareem Hunt was released by the Kansas City Chiefs this past November after a video leaked showing him shove and kick a woman in a hotel hallway. This week, the Cleveland Browns announced they are signing Hunt to a one-year contract. This signing creates a plethora of conversations and concerns. Believing that Hunt should lose his right to play in the NFL again is understandable when considering his unacceptable behavior. Domestic violence is terrible, and it's reasonable to wonder why a team would want players with this kind of history on their roster. Many are wondering how the Browns can look past Hunt's transgressions and welcome him into their franchise. But when unpacking this today, I'm hoping we can also see how it paints a picture of what grace is all about. Grace is simple, yet complicated, and we struggle with its concept. We hear stories of atrocious acts by people, and we don't think they deserve a second chance. Then, at the same time, we look at our own mistakes and poor choices and desire grace and another chance, usually using a sliding scale in our favor. We tell ourselves, we're not that bad. Thankfully, though, God is the ultimate judge, and he is filled with love and grace and doesn't operate on a sliding scale. God is rich in mercy and offers us what we don't deserve. He offers us second chances and forgiveness in Jesus. The Bible says God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us, and says if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. God's word gives us the assurance that he looks past our transgressions and welcomes us into his family. Today, let's not forget how incredible grace is and that God makes it available to all of us sinners. Let's be challenged to turn away from sin as we embrace the grace we've been shown, and let's willingly extend it toward others. So I hope you're willing to unpack that. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you'll stay connected with us throughout the week on social media and on unpackingit.com. Until next time, I'm Bryce Johnson, and I'm a sports fan who follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sins, he was resurrected, and through faith, I have been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well, and I hope you'll join me as we live life as sports fans who follow Jesus together. Have a wonderful week. This has been Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson on Sports Byline USA and SiriusXM Channel 211, Dan Patrick Radio.